Good morning. This is Crystal Woods with Seasons in the Vine, and it's Fresh Friday. And I'm here with a special guest today.
Hi.
My daughter Shelby. She is a breath of fresh air and a wealth of godly wisdom. And so I thought I would bring her on to give you guys some extra perspective from a 20-year-old living through the first global pandemic.
Yay.
Unprecedented times. And we every day have these like very long, theological, deep,
Very common here.
Yeah, very big conversations. And we don't record them because we're just living this way. But I thought we'd put the record button on today and just kind of see what comes out and share a little bit of how we're taking this time in the world and just kind of offer you what we're doing, and maybe it'll resonate and give you some hope and direction and perspective that might really bless you. So let's go.
Yeah, let's do this.
Awesome. So I've really been considering that this time in the world, to me personally, is like a wilderness experience.
Yeah.
This is what it reminds me of is a time I went through a couple of years ago where it didn't affect the whole world, but it definitely was affecting me. And it was a time that the Lord really pulled me out of everything and shut everything down. And I've referenced it in other Fresh Fridays. But I really struggled in that time because I wasn't perceiving what God was doing. Mm-hmm. I was just wanting things to be the way they were before. And I remember saying that and grieving it. I want things to be the way they were. I want things to be the way they were. And I would cry and mourn over those things being different and gone and maybe not coming back ever again. And that was where I was. And it took me a long time to see that God was doing a new thing in my life. And so in this wilderness season that we're kind of all thrown in, I'm taking it as, what do you want me to learn from this, God? What do you want me to see about you in this? And kind of heading that direction before I kind of really stalled in the past, but really engaging in the wilderness this time. It's not a place anybody wants to be. Even biblically, it's not, you go there by assignment. We see that with the nation of Israel after the Exodus, and then Jesus is called into the wilderness to be tested and tempted. And so it's not a place that people are like, hey, sign me up.
Right, let's go.
Let's go there. But it is a place that the Lord will meet us. And so that's just my take on it. What have you been learning or seeing in your own life?
Yeah, I think that it's just been a season where I have learned to press in. I feel like I've gone really fast and hard with the Lord for years, just like, let's go all the way, all for it, all the time.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, you actually can't do that right now. And so, like, he has to be enough.
Wow.
And if he's not enough, it shows. And where he's not enough, it shows. So, like, if
That's
there's anxiety, well, then he wasn't the foundation.
Wow.
And if there's, uncertainty, well, then, like, do I really trust him?
Right.
So it's pushing all those areas of my life, like, right to the surface, because there's no business to distract myself by. I can only read so many textbooks
right.
in a day. I can only do so much. So, yeah, it's just forcing me to come to terms with where I'm really at with him. And he's gracious and kind in that place, but he's also like, you aren't made for that. So, like, let's keep going. Let's move forward. And so something I'm considering now is, like, what does moving forward look like?
Right.
Like, where do we go from here? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, like, we lived through the pandemic because we're just going to believe that. Like, we're going to make it through this. So what does life look like on the other side of this?
Wow.
And so wanting to be really intentional with, yes, we use this time for the present, and we're like, I'm working on those things with the Lord and growing in the Lord in that time. But also, like, okay, when I'm done with this, where do I want to be?
Right.
Who do I want to be? What do I want to change? What do I not want to go back to at all? And if I'm not going back, how am I going to handle those conversations of not going back? How am I going to ensure that I leave things well, but that, I don't do things that I know the Lord has asked me to stop?
Wow.
So yeah, I think that's really where I'm at in all of this is, grieving what is gone, because there are things that we've lost that we're not going back to and we're not picking back up.
Sure.
We're not supposed to. We shouldn't be. And there are new things that he's inviting us into.
Yeah.
A lot of them currently in this season are like stop it and listen.
Slow down.
Yeah, stop moving. But then what is this next season going to look like after this? What are we hoping for? What are we dreaming for?
Right.
So, yeah, I'd say that's a really big thing.
I love that. And I think that these situations that we get into, I mean, this is on a global level, which is very unifying. We're all in some kind of transition now, even if we're still working. Like I think about my mom and her grandma who's still working at a grocery store. Everything has shifted even in that. And the isolation of not being near us and not having any kind of activities beyond your work is still very much like a wilderness thing. And I love how you shared that the Lord is really like bringing things to light, and there's a clarifying in your life. And when you said, that was a hard word, because like we like to say Jesus is enough, but now is the time for us to actually put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah, because I mean, he has to be. So like you actually don't have another choice. Like, yeah, you have your family that you can run to, but I'm sure they get annoying at some point in the smallest ways. And it's just like, oh, I'll just go be by myself. But like, never alone, because everywhere you go, he's there.
Right.
Yes. So like, yeah, and so like learning to say like, okay, like if you're here, I'm not gonna ignore you this time.
Wow.
Like I'm gonna say, no, you're actually with me in all the things I'm doing.
Yes.
Because I'm not alone.
Right.
So I can't be isolated because he doesn't leave me.
Yeah.
So what is isolation to a God who never leaves?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. And it's like pressing into the presence. Like now is the time. And that's really the urgency that I have felt. Like now is the time to press into the presence. We see that God has written his story and shown over and over again that he desires to live with his people. Mm-hmm. It's the entire narrative of the Old Testament, and it's what the new covenant in the New Testament brings to us.
Yeah.
And so he desires to live with us all the time, but we're so busy. Yeah. And sometimes we can miss that. So I think now is the time to like push into the presence of God in the stillness, in the transition, in the change. And so it isn't really a time of isolation in that regard. It's a time of deep intimacy, a calling away of the beloved. Right. And like, let me teach you my ways. And how do you hear my voice?
Right.
You know, his voice can get so much louder when everything else is so much quieter, and all the distractions and the extras. Even if they were good things, nothing is better than Jesus.
And if you're not in a place where you believe that yet, like you need to ask him to show you that.
Yes.
Right. Like I don't believe that nothing is better than you.
Yeah.
But like, do you want to stay that way?
Right.
Or do you want to believe that nothing is better than him? Because if you ask him, he will show up and he will show you that nothing is better than him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you shared earlier, like even like this steadfastness, this sustainability that can come out of this season, and what that will do on the other side.
Right. Yeah. So like if there's things that the Lord is like working on in you, you don't want to, let this end and then jump into the next season and be like, oh, I completely forgot that he said not to go back to that, or I completely forgot what it felt like to be running at, 100 miles an hour.
Right.
Like I forgot how unhealthy that felt. Like you don't want to get to that point. So learning to build sustainable patterns, and even if that means now you need to like be having those conversations of, hey, like I'm not coming back to this thing, or I'm going to do less of this thing, or my kids aren't going to do soccer, or they're not going to do all the sports, or we're going to do one school event a year, or whatever that's going to look like.
Right.
Making those decisions while you have the clarity to make them, to make the commitment, and then you can follow through with it a lot easier if you've already made the first step.
Right.
So yeah, that's something that I'm working on figuring out how to do in this season. But not wanting to leave it without having done that.
Right. So because we don't want, and this has been said, I mean, this I don't think is an original thought. First, a lot of the prophetic words and a lot of words that are coming out right now is like this is a global reset. Right. And while God is not the author of sickness, he will actually use everything the enemy means for harm or bad for good. And so it's a matter of like the church of God pressing in and saying like, what's good in this? What do you want to do in this, God? So that when we exit out of this, when we exodus this and we press into a new season, we're different.
Right.
We're a changed church, and really becoming a people that have that steadfastness, have sustainable rhythms in their life, and have learned that Jesus truly is enough. even when it's a good thing to desire coffee with a friend and Bible studies and things like that, but when it's all stripped down, is your relationship with him enough? Is living in his presence enough for you? And out of that, really just being a new people. And that's kind of like what I'm seeing, and to be changed. We don't want to just survive this,
Right.
but we want to become different people because we've pressed in and done whatever the Lord has called us to do. And that's going to be different for all of us. But that's the awesome thing, is that he wants to meet with us and talk about those things. So my thing is that I really want to come out burning brighter for him, with more steadfastness and security in him, as he is the only thing in my life that really matters.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
Well, when I was listening to you talk about like the wilderness, and you don't want to leave it the same or whatever, like the Israelites didn't actually have that choice, because
Right.
God was like, go into the promised land, and they were like, it's scary, we're not going.
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, here's 40 years
Right.
of wandering, and like you're all gonna die,
Yes.
and I'm only taking 2 of you that were original with you.
Yes. Yes.
So like, he is kind and he's gracious, and this is an opportunity for you to press in. And like, he wants to make you different.
Yes.
He's always wanting to sanctify us and refine
Amen.
us into the image of Jesus. So if we're all heading towards Jesus, like, let's just do it.
Let's
Like,
do
let's
it.
stop messing around.
Yes.
Let's stop like pushing back against, like, let's not be an Israelite who's like, oh, but I don't want to.
Yes.
I don't want to change. Okay, well, he's saying it's time to change, so
Yes.
let's make the change. Let's take the step.
Absolutely.
And that's to me too, of like, what's my foundation? What am I really caring about? But I think this is the time to
Right.
say, like, oh, I have a whole week to sit and think about this.
Yes.
Because there's like family, and there's kids, and there's like all the stresses of
Right.
this season, but there's still
Margin.
right.
Yeah. Everybody has some way of margin at this point
Right.
in time, to a degree. I mean,
To a degree. I mean, unless, there's circumstances in which people are busier than they've ever been in their whole life, like nurses and stuff like that.
right.
But even in that, they can say, what is the Lord asking me? What is he showing me about who he is?
Yes.
What is he saying
Right.
about what's happening?
Yes.
About being a caretaker and stuff like that. So
There's a unique message for this time on the planet.
yeah.
And the church needs to hear it for themselves and come out of this equipped and ready for whatever God has next for us.
Right.
And so I'm doing a new thing. Do you perceive it?
Yeah.
That's what it is. I'm doing something new, and do you perceive it? And can we catch the wind and go after it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a good one.
Well, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yes. And thanks for listening, guys. And we hope you're doing well and pressing in. This is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Don't miss it.
Don't miss it.
Bye.
Bye.